Hey guys, Hailey Lain aka Key Black here, and welcome back to another episode of Off the Cuff. Apologies for the audio quality in this one. I'm in the middle of setting up my new studio and not all the acoustic foam's on the walls yet, but things should be settled out for the next one. For this episode, I figure it's been a minute since we've talked about Yu-Gi-Oh! And I left off right before one of the best parts of Death T, which is the climax. So we're gonna jump right into Death T-5, the dual monsters / magic and wizards battle between the other Yugi and Seto Kaiba at the very end of Death T. And I could just gush about how well all of Death T just leads up to this grand finale, like the tension's at an all-time high. And kinda like with Sugoroku versus Kaiba, what draws me in about this isn't the card game itself and how different it is from the later version of the card game, but just the portrayal of the characters, the pacing, the attitude. Like, this is intense to read. And I seriously admire Takahashi for making a card game some of the most riveting material I've ever read. You know, Kaiba continues to steal the show. He's like this fantastic opposite to the energy that the other Yugi always brings to these things. His expressions are deathly scary throughout the entire thing. He goes from this seriously unfazed, deadly calm all the way into this kind of manic, hysterical, like, glee as he's facing the other Yugi, who for his part is sweating bullets throughout pretty much the entire thing from like the third turn onwards. There's this fantastic 2-page spread when Kaiba draws the first Blue Eyes White Dragon. And looking at it, it's pretty funny. There's like hardly any background happening in this, but it's just all about the paneling and all about the characters and their expressions. And I love the other Yugi's face as he's staring down the blue eyes with this speechless shock. It's like, man, I feel that. The battle's not 100% one-sided. The other Yugi does manage to draw a couple of really lucky cards, always right at the last minute where like the next turn's gonna spell his doom. He draws Gaia the Fierce Knight, followed by Swords of Revealing Light. Each one of those buys him maybe a turn or 3, as the case is with the swords. But for the most part, the other Yugi is seriously on the defensive throughout this duel, and again, he's sweating buckets. He starts out this match looking pissed off, like angrier than we've seen him in a long time, basically since Shadi. And it doesn't take long for him to get super freaked out, and you have that contrast with Kaiba, who's enjoying and savoring every minute of this. And then there's the lead into, you know, what's been memed to hell out of the first episode of the anime, and probably rightfully so. Again, I watched it first too, but man, I was not expecting it to hit so much harder in the manga like it does, because oh my god. This is one of those scenes where it completely redefined my standards for what to expect out of comics. Yugi's got a handful of what he thinks are junk cards. He doesn't really know what he's gonna do, and he closes his eyes. He's not sure if he can even win this, and he has an internal conversation with Grandpa. And it's not like in the anime, like this is little Yugi talking to his grandpa, not the other Yugi. Grandpa gives him a hint about how the cards can work together just like the pieces of a puzzle, just like the Millennium Puzzle, just like the Unity thing from the Shadi fight. And I love the way that Takahashi sets this up as he's kind of closing his eyes and going into his own mind. You can feel the rush of the audience's roar, the roar of the dragons kind of muffle out into that silent, like, this is where I am, this is my own headspace, I'm blocking everything out, everything's gone to black. And when he suddenly realizes with the Exodia, everything comes rushing back. It's in the pacing, it's in the expressions, it's in the angles, it's in the onomatopoeia as it's written in the panels. It's in the speed lines in the background. Like, when I'm reading this, I'm like, I can hear all of this. Kaiba's yelling at him to hurry up and draw a card already. He draws, it's another piece of Exodia. There's that little glimmer of hope in his expression again. Kaiba notices it and dismisses it, which is, oh, I love that. It's like, that's your downfall, Kaiba. Yugi survives another turn thanks to the first appearance of the Dark Magician, and then it's down to the last turn, and the other Yugi is now terrified to draw. What if he screws up? What if he doesn't get the one card out of the 40 cards in his deck that he needs? And to rub salt in the wound, Kaiba draws the last Blue Eyes White Dragon on that very same turn, and on the next turn, the Swords of Revealing Light disappear, so this really is the last turn, right? Takahashi back at it again with the super dynamic paneling and full page spreads. I love this stuff. And then the last chapter to finish out this duel for Death T5. The art quality like jumps up by 1,000,000. It's just fantastic. The other Yugi's just completely sweating buckets as he's having this internal monologue. Anzu and Jinochi are cheering him on. Kaiba is jeering at him. I love this expression. It's like, oh my god, the sadism in that face. And then with another 2-page spread, Takahashi shows that little glimmer of hope in the darkness, and it's the friendship circle from Death T3 that Anzu drew on everybody's hands. Again, it's been memed to hell, and I've made jokes about it because I watched the anime first, but the manga hits different, man. I get hung up on these pages every single time I come back to them. The expressions and the acting is so good. I think this is like one of the first times we've seen the other Yugi where his eyebrows aren't burrowing themselves into the center of his face on tops of his eyes. The sincere surprise, and I'm as touched as he is, you know? And with his courage restored, the other Yugi decides with a smile to draw the last card, and Kaiba notices this as well, and he can't understand it. But the other Yugi smiles as he says he's not accepting defeat. He has faith in his last card, and he draws it, and it's Exodia. And oh my god, the pacing on this reveal. First off, as soon as Yugi announces he's drawn Exodia, Kaiba's just like, what? Another 2-page spread as Exodia emerges from the edge of reality within the holograms. The whiplash hits Kaiba like a freight truck, and there is fear on his face again. And Yugi cries out, "Raging Hellfire! Exodia Flame!" Blasts the 3 Blue Eyes White Dragons into smithereens, and oh my god, the drawings here. And as Kaiba's teeth visibly grit and chatter, the other Yugi declares, "Kaiba, I win." And I'm gonna have to cut things off there before I continue to gush about the rest of this because, oh my god. So thank you guys so much for listening and for watching. I will see you in the next one where we pick up at the end of Death T, the whole saga with this nice little wrap-up. So I cannot wait to talk about that. I cannot wait to share it with you guys. Thanks again so much, and I will see you then.